Thank you for that. I think one thing struck me is this idea of how religion is planted in the back of our minds and how we can't escape it, even though we're sitting here as humanists, as atheists, as non-believers, but people who've been raised in the church. And you were talking about joining the Amish, and a lot of people that I've met, when they've got those questions, that battle that's going on in their head is they go deeper. They go much deeper into religion. They become, they were going 5 days a week, they're now going 7, they're going twice a day, they're going to different churches, they're going to trying different religions, and it's that panic because they suddenly realise that everything that they've been taught by people they love, by friends and family, they're suddenly doubting. And that is a whole world of confusion. And I think that's what we've experienced, that whole world of confusion, that you were raised in something by people who said, I love you, who do things, who give you food, who give you shelter, who give you all those things, have protected you, but they've also given you this one thing that has now damaged you. And you always got to reconcile with that. Reconcile that idea that people you love can also do you damage. And your whole identity of who you are and how you're raised, even as an atheist, actually starts from the idea that you were raised as a religious person in whatever religion that is. And when you're in those controlling religions, I went to a C of E school and it wasn't too bad, Harvest Festival, things like that, and that wasn't too bad. But we have this whole world of other Christian religions that do something completely different, do something completely damaging, and that we don't even talk about, apart from the Mormons every so often, and that just makes good TV. But there's a whole world out there that we don't talk about, that we don't connect with, that we really need to kind of put on the map and really kind of get to the heart of, because we can get caught up in Islam because it's other people and it's over there and it does nothing to do with us, when we've got something right in our backyard happening on our doorstep that's too big and too painful for us to really deal with. But we're going to try and problem solve it today, aren't we, ladies and gentlemen? So I'm going to open up the floor to everyone out there. And can I raise a hand? Anybody got a question? Raise your hands. Thank you.
Faith-to-faithless could exist without the internet?
Faith-to-faithless without the internet? I don't think anything can exist today without the internet. I think that social media is a huge part of everything that we do. And when you're Emma was talking about you're not alone and that there were other people out there, when you're in that world of confusion, reaching out. I mean, I don't know, do all of you use internet? Do all of you use the multimedia in any form?
I spend quite a lot of time when I have sort of moments of relapse, where I will sort of go through Facebook and look at sort of rude cartoons about God and religion, because it just helps me realise that it's not, no one else is, that there are people out there who aren't taking it seriously, that it's not just me v the church. There is a whole, it gives it a reality check fairly quickly.
I think that is the wonderful thing about the internet though as well, in this age, and perhaps, I don't know, but we've seen a rise of atheism. But since the dawn of the internet, I mean, let's be honest, the internet, I only got my first computer when I was sort of in the noughties, actually, in the early noughties, but the sort of in the 90s, early 90s, that sort of thing. And atheism has steadily grown since then, really, if we're honest, and perhaps it's something to do with it being this taboo subject, because we don't talk about it, or we do now, but perhaps at that point we weren't talking about it, and it didn't reach the far corners of the world because we didn't have the internet. And the good thing about things like Faith-to-Faithless and filming these kinds of stuff is that it goes online and it reaches people who, so they'll put up that I was a Baptist, and a Baptist Christian will just sort of type in, like Emma did when she went onto the internet and said, is it okay not to be a Christian? I'm a Baptist. And then, find a video that talks about somebody who also experienced that. And they kind of then, yes, as you say, they realise that they're not alone. But I do think, actually, the dawn of the internet has given us an incredible opportunity, not to convert people to atheism, but to reach out to them and say, hey, we're here for you, and not because you're vulnerable, which I feel like Christianity does so much, so many of the people I know who've converted to Christianity have been vulnerable people who their auntie has died, their brother has died, they're going through mental illness. But this all-loving community who loves you with a kind of purpose and a reason, rather than just loving you as you are, has reached out to you. But they do that. I think quite a lot of it is very close. They're starting to move out into the internet, and there is a lot of obviously Christian propaganda and stuff out there. But actually, a lot of the stuff that happens is person to person, community to community, and that's quite difficult. That becomes toxic. Whereas I think the beauty of us as humanists having the internet is that you can't, you can control people through the internet, but it's a hell of a lot more difficult because it's not quite as emotional. You can you can disconnect yourself from it, and you can think more sort of, what's the word? You can think more logically and rationally, and not be quite so influenced by somebody. Well, I don't know, it's difficult, right? There's televangelists in it, but I don't know, yeah.
Can you tell if this is effect on, for example, the black Christian communities of London? Is the availability of information making any changes? Can you tell?
It's hard to tell, to know what's going on.
I'm a data nerd, so I'm bound to ask you.
When we think about the black community, it's hidden. So there are people who come to our meetings on a Saturday. Our meetings are on a Saturday because people come to our meetings on a Saturday and go to church on a Sunday. So there's a lot of hidden stuff where people can't say exactly what they want to say, can't be exactly who they want to be. So the information out there is happening in their rooms. It's happening in little quiet spaces. So I think the fact that we just have to be there and just hope that someone's looking and that they get access to it. Because if we weren't there, they wouldn't have that access. So you just need to put it out there, see what happens, and people do turn up and to our meetings, people do come along. So it's having an effect. How much we might not know now, it may happen later, but we just need to keep doing what we're doing. And Faith to Faithless and Humanist, we just need to keep doing it because it. On our websites and people are calling. I've got something in Russian. I don't know if any of you speak Russian. Someone's written me a whole thing on one of our websites. It's in Russian, and it's like I don't know what that says. But the fact that someone in Russia is reading London Black Atheist website is just amazing to me. So we just need to keep doing it. We just need to use whatever platforms we have, and people who need us, people who want us, will find us. They'll type in something, and if we can pop up, then our job is halfway done.
Yeah, I mean the internet was a real lifeline for me. Part of the thing about being lonely was there was no one that I knew that really understood. I mean, if I spoke to my Christian friend and I said I'm having a crisis of faith, it would be, well, come on sister, let's pray for you and lead you back to the arms of Jesus. And if I spoke to my non-Christian friends about having this crisis of faith, it would be like, yeah, just what's the deal? What's the big problem? Just don't go to church anymore. So there was no one that I could actually really connect with. I'd not heard of Faith to Faithless until I'd sort of gone quite a way down the road of becoming an atheist. There was no one that I could really speak to and talk to and express my feelings. So listening to the likes of Seth Andrews, Matt Dillahunty, the cartoons, Dark Matter 2525 and the story of Stephen and stuff, that was the thing that kind of helped me in my journey and kept me sane. It kept me, Julia was saying, those times when you just felt crap and you wanted to just laugh at some of the things that you used to believe in. That was without the internet, I don't really know. I don't even know if I'd have been in the situation I am in today. I don't know if I'd have had the courage and the understanding to move forward. I probably would have, but it certainly made it a lot better for me and a lot easier for me to progress along that journey.
That's it. I think the internet's an integral part of the spread of the message, whether it be humanism or atheism. I think there needs to be a presentation of alternatives because my partner's a Christian, and one thing I've learned from her is to as you get older you learn to shut up. I'm learning to shut up more. And I found that with some of the, especially emotional churches, there's always a textbook scandal. Always, it doesn't there's a charismatic pastor, and there's always some sort of scandal that emerges. And I've seen it in so many churches, even my own churches when I was younger. But I hold it differently, you know, and I went to her church, and it was the best show I've ever been to, like, production value-wise. I was like, wow, this is incredible. There's music, there's even a slight build-up music before the service starts. And it's like, it is incredible show value. And I left, and I was like, oh, it was a good show, move on. And that's taken a long time to get to. I wish that was so easy when I was younger, because even there's a twinge of guilt that as I see people almost in tears, crying, you know, arms swaying, it was that, this doesn't happen for me, and it hasn't been. It's taken me a long time to be honest, and I think that guilt has always powered doubt within myself, that perhaps I'm not praying hard enough, perhaps I'm not speaking in tongues, it's not, I don't know, I feel like I'm missing something. There's something which I didn't get that everyone else seemed to get, and I feel left out. And I think the internet has been integral to really, for me anyway, really looking at alternatives, seeing visible, because one thing Christianity is brilliant at is offering you a path. I question that path because it is based upon some sort of, not payment, but you know, it's like you do these exams and you'll get X. And I think one thing they're good at is saying that there's a path for you here. It's here for you. If you want it, come and join us, and you're part of a tight-knit club. And I think, you know, I'm not so sure humanism needs to go the same way, but I definitely think in terms of making providing a visible alternative to the internet has been key. You know, you get the good and the bad with the internet, I think, but in terms of spread of humanism, that's how I think I came across it in the first place, and it was like, wow, this makes sense. I get this. Not that I feel it, but I actually get this. It sits comfortably with me.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to take this gentleman with glasses and then take you at the back, okay?
It was great to hear from everybody, and everybody spoke very passionately about the impact that their religion had on them. Do you feel that there should be more investment in training in the professional sphere, particularly mental health, for people to understand just what the impact of religion can be? And as you were saying, Audrey, you know, people say Christianity is just a nice sort of soft, a bit like the local pub, or, you know, it's just part of British culture. But actually, it can be very damaging. We've heard the personal testimonies of the damage that it caused. And is there really an awareness within the mental health support services of that, do you think? And should there be more emphasis on it?
I can feel Imtiaz watching, looking at me. Faith to Faithless is putting together a training course to go out to professionals,
right,
to look for them to think of apostasy as a thing, because I don't think people think of it as a thing. And so that's something that Faith to Faithless is actually looking at, and because yes, it needs to be, we need to get professionals to think about it and to deal with it as a real thing, as an emotional thing, as a mental health thing, and as a practical thing of people leaving one tight-knit community, family, friends, and going out of that, and how they're going to cope with that.
Yeah.
So yes, it is something that we're thinking of. Faith to Faithless is looking at that and trying to do something about it. So thank you for
It's interesting. I mean, Emma was the only one who I think got professional help. Your CBT, have I got the right?
Yeah, cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah.
I would think, I mean, from my experience, there are other things I think that lead. So I have clinical anxiety, and obviously that's a thing that people have anyway, even if they weren't religious. But I do actually, when I look back at my childhood, see, I mean, if someone's constantly watching you and there's always like some sort of, you know, you're going to have that in the back of your brain, right? But I mean, I'm not, okay, I come out and say, I wet myself until I was 14. I couldn't sleep with the light off until I was 16. There are other reasons for that, I believe, but also this continuous belief in something else watching me consistently. I was never good enough, I never matched up. If I, you know, like, I don't know, like, I really struggle. Like, now I have anxiety, and I will probably have anxiety for the rest of my life. And I don't talk about it as if it's something to do with religion, but I actually do think the more I've sat and thought about it, it's like living in something that's about to explode. Like, particularly when you're a child, and particularly when you're somebody like me who has a very over imagination and really believed a lot of the stuff, really believed. But I think for some people who sit here who are atheists and who've been atheists their whole life, they can't understand how you can really believe that stuff. Like, it sounds like absolute nonsense. And I mean, it is absolute nonsense. But, it really is a problem, and it will continue to affect me for the rest of my life. Was I predisposed to become anxious? Who knows? But I really do think that played a huge... Because like, who do I turn to? Because my parents didn't believe that it was anything to do with religion. My church obviously was like, well, that's something that you've done or something that somebody else has done. She'll get over it, she'll grow up, she'll grow out of it. But I think that there is a huge thing of saying there's nothing wrong at getting angry at indoctrination. There really isn't, even if it's done by people who love you. In fact, even more if it's done by people who love you. Mental health issues are a huge problem. Not just for people who leave, but people who are actually within a church that's that controlling. So, anyone else want to?
Yeah, just to kind of, as I was saying earlier, when you're in the church and you suffer with mental health problems, you believe it's a problem with you, and it's a problem with you, that you're not spiritual enough, you're not praying enough, you haven't been filled with the Holy Spirit, you don't speak in tongues. Everything's aimed at you, and the church kind of, from my experience, the church reinforces that. Yes, it is you. It can't be us. It can't be God's fault. It can't be because God isn't helping you. It must be you. It must be because there's sin in your life, or all these kind of things. And there just isn't that support there. And then when you leave religion, you do believe that it's your fault and it's your problem, and you believe. If it's your problem and it's your fault, then the only way to solve that is by sort of looking inward. And I mean, I was very reluctant to go and get help for my depression for those reasons, because I thought, well, doctors can't do anything, counsellors can't do anything, tablets can't do anything. The only thing that can cure this is Jesus and me becoming more like Jesus. And then when I left religion, even though my doctor was very good and I had the counselling, I had the CBT and everything, and it was brilliant and it helped me look at things more rationally, no one I spoke to really understood the problems of apostasy and those problems of kind of, I'm going to go to hell now. I'm sure they understood the wider issues, but nobody really got how leaving religion affected you and affected your mental health. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that more in healthcare professionals, to have that further understanding.
I'm going to take this gentleman back there, and then I take the gentleman back there.
How do you explain to your family about your choice? They're obviously worried about you.
How do you explain to your families? Have you had that conversation? So, who wants to start with that?
I can pick up on that. I guess it's been most recent for me to have to do that. Don't know. It's really weird because I didn't kind of have to explain it in some sense. Like, when I said I was an atheist, I had to explain that. But I think they kind of realised that I was losing my faith over a while. Blamed it on the ex-boyfriend, obviously, because totally the atheist's fault. But, like, maybe partially it is his fault, but maybe I should thank him for that. I think it was something that was continually going, and they kept being like, maybe you want to do this, or you're not praying hard enough, or you're not going to church enough, but you'll come back to Jesus. And there's this whole thing about so I remember, I joined it used to be called the Atheist, Humanist and Secular Society, which is now Humanist Students. And actually having the word atheist in the title was really scary for me. Maybe I wouldn't have found it if I didn't have the word atheist in it. But I remember my friend Steve talking about how there was no God at some debate, and I thought, oh wow, I believe that. Oh wait, what does that mean? And I realised that these people weren't assholes. Like my church wanted me to believe. I mean, yeah. But at that point, that was maybe 5 years after I really stop believing in it, that I felt comfortable enough to say, do you know what, I'm an atheist. But that was only because, and so this is for me why humanist students is so important. I was only able really to do that because I was at university, because I'd left home, because I had these new friends who would support me through it. But I don't know, I remember having a phone call with my mum saying, oh yeah, I went along to this atheist humanist secular group, and she was like, oh, the atheists or something. And I think, I didn't have to tell her that I was an atheist, it just had to kind of be like, that's what I'm doing now. But these conversations are continuous, like all the time. Like, it's kind of, you never escape it, it's always constantly, like I always go home and I'm always chatting about it consistently, and having to defend my position. So yeah, I don't know, like, I think if you're worried about it, I don't know, it depends on how you think your parents will react. Like my parents, yeah, they're annoying, and they think I'm going to hell, and it took them a long time to see the humour in it all. My dad finds it very funny now, and I find his religion very funny, and it's fine, we can laugh at each other now, 3 years later. But at the beginning it was really scary for them as well. I think if you're afraid that something might happen by coming out as an atheist to your family, then have somebody else there with you who can mitigate that, or do it over the phone potentially. That's what I did. Not that I thought that anything would have happened if I said it to my mum's face, but like it was just easy to be like, so I think I'm an atheist. Or if you feel like you can just have, I feel like you just kind of got to do it for yourself. You just got to have to say, if you can inside yourself say, I am this is who I am, this is my identity, then either you live your life hiding that and never being fully accepted by your parents, and some people have to do that because their parents and their family will reject them completely, but I think you'll never be comfortable in yourself if you can't be comfortable around the people who brought you up, or at least say, be out and be who you are. And it might be difficult for a few years, but you need to do it.
Gosh, but did you have to come out to your family?
It's interesting because when I think about having to come out to a family, there's an experience I had. I got a chance to live in Ghana, in West Africa, after I finished uni, and again just last year. And it's funny, Ghana's the most Christian place I've ever been to. Everyone is, by His grace, God bless you. But they hold Christianity very differently. So, for example, someone will say, every text I got on WhatsApp was BHG, by His grace. I'll be there by His grace. There's constant references to the Bible. There's all-night prayer sessions. University of Ghana. I was there during exam season. All-night prayer sessions. But Ghanaians hold it in a very different way. It's not part of the identity in the same way whether like it or not, Christianity has been part of my identity. It was there at the building blocks, and it's been very hard to detach from that, the difficulties. Whereas in Ghana, despite the kind of emotional worship, I say that's one of the great things Africa exports, emotional Christian worship. That's where I saw it first. I was like, oh my. And in Ghana, someone can go to church, they're praising, speaking. Then Monday, I used to go to church, a guy at Emmanuel used to take me to church. He'd sleep during the whole service, wake up, say, let's go eat. And even though it was important, it wasn't part of his identity in the same way in the West. And to be exposed to that, ironically, perhaps kick-started my journey, because I saw how people held it, but in a very different way. Whereas for me, I couldn't be black and be Christian and not be Christian. They were too fused together. Whereas perhaps what I witnessed in Africa, people sourcing that identity from something else, because religion, like you mentioned, religion came from abroad. Well, Christianity was given where there was something else before that was there, and whether it was religion, whatever it was, it existed before family names, and there's something else which is sourced as opposed to this kind of, whereas to me it's fused with being black. And even speaking to my nephews the other day, so what are you? Listen, here we go. I kind of believe just be a good person. Oh, and that happens with adults as well. It always happens. But in terms of coming out to family, had a conversation with my mother is actually, and was asking, I was like, this was a few years ago, I'm this way because kind of you, right? But like, what's your beliefs? And actually talking to my mother about it and realizing that in a way, my sort of non-commitment to Christianity or part-time Christianity has actually been sourced from her in a strange way. And I think that comes through judgment, perhaps being divorced, perhaps being herself experiencing the pushback of religion. And I think talking to her about it wasn't too much of a shock for her anyway. It was more of a, oh, okay, which actually shocked me because there's this thing I've been struggling with, and you're kind of indifferent. My dad, on the other hand, was like, live your life, you know. You know, him having been raised in Tanzania, in Africa, the way he held his religion, not coming to the West until he was an adult, was, you know, get on with it. But the coming out, I think, the conversation I remember a few years ago, my mother was more, okay, yeah, continue, do your thing, which actually frustrated me slightly, because it's like, I've been fighting over here, and you didn't care in the first place. Like, to you, it's like, oh, well, you know, get on and do it.
I mean, my dad was always a complete atheist, so he was really happy when I left religion. Probably the hardest thing for me was my sister and her husband are Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was dreading having to tell them because I thought, you know, I knew what would happen. I knew that they'd sort of see me as fresh meat and try and, you know, well, you haven't found fulfillment in Christianity, but we've got another sort of type of Christianity, and now you can become a Jehovah's Witness. And I've had kind of lots of heated discussions with her, and now I just tend to sort of like, let's just agree to disagree.
Can I just add, I do think that one thing I've learned is that humanism as such isn't a passive thing, that you have to reinforce boundaries, that there has to be boundaries, and as much as I want it to be, oh yeah, I'm humanist, cool. In fact, you know, for me there's definitely been a kind of, I agree to state, like, there's a boundary here, like, no, which is a new thing for me, especially if someone's coming at me with, you know, you need to come here, we need to worship, it's to say, you know, these are my beliefs, and, you know, whether I disagree or agree with you, this is me, and I stand by it.
I'm going to take one more. Did you want to say? I'm going to take one more question. This will be our last question. We need to wind up. So
yes, it's related to the sort of emotional and spiritual damage that you mentioned, all of you. So my question is something to do with. So I went from thinking initially like, of course, religion is this sort of horrible cancer that needs to be cut out of children's life, for one thing. To thinking, well, actually, it's your poison. If it works for you, that's fine. You know, it's not like you leave me out of it. But your comments tonight have perhaps pushed me the other way slightly again in terms of, so I would like to know what fraction of people would you say within each of your experiences of church were emotionally vulnerable, people who had perhaps mental health difficulties or were alcohol, perhaps as a result of religious upbringing. What fraction of people would you say were there around you? Was it 10% or 90% or?
I would say that's.
I've noticed that as I'm aging and my parents are getting older and my friends' parents are getting, especially my friends who are ethnic minorities, this is coming up more and more, especially when it comes to, I've had several friends struggle with getting parents treatment or relatives treated, and the conflict has been with the religious beliefs or and such, and it's really been very troubling for some friends, especially those my friends who are quite religious. I guess I can see that more now on a day-to-day basis. I have a friend whose mother's refused a blood transfusion very recently, and for something which he's like this is it, like she has to have this, and she's refusing. So, in terms of vulnerability, it's hard to say with any effort. I say there is a correlation between my experience in the church and poverty. That is, there is definitely, you know. I lived in a community where, you know, there are people borderline poverty. These things were tough, you know, at times. I felt quite privileged because my mother was a single mother, but she was able to support us. I recognise not everyone had that, and the church's prevalence was a big support system. And that's perhaps why the reason, if I've come full circle, I can sit there and be, if my sister says, you know, I'm sending my nephews to church group, and I can almost sit there and say, well, in lieu of any other support system, I recognise the value it does provide. Obviously, that's got an asterisk next to it. Yeah, I'm not so sure if that answered the question.
It's really difficult. I was chatting to some of the guys, humanist friends, and so there's I'm not gonna like say exactly what it is, but like there's a thing that's like a kind of church group thing that's been set up by my ex-youth pastor, who where they deal and give a lot of opportunities to people who are either homeless or who have come out of prison. And for me, you know, looking at the justice system and looking at the welfare system, man, like, great that somebody is doing something about that. Somebody is changing something. And so my issue with grappling with that and saying, well, they're doing something really, really good for these people. They're giving them an opportunity. You know, I know growing up as a in Hackney. So my church is based on an estate where there was a lot of, like, when I was a kid at least, a lot of knife crime, gun violence and stuff like that. And actually, looking at it, the church did some incredible things and took some, very vulnerable young people and older people and looked after them. And they say that there's no, what's the word? I can't remember words today, but they say that there's no motive for it. They say, we're just here to serve as the church, to serve as Jesus has served, to wash the feet of people. And there's this whole, it sounds so romantic, like, we're here to serve you and look after you, and God has given us this mission to, like, fix the world. And that stems out of this whole thing of the fact that we're all wretched and broken, and in some ways you can see that kind of balances the playing field a little bit. I mean, it doesn't for some people, but that's another conversation. But for me, the trouble with that was that the more that this kind of church community tried to fix the problem, actually the worse that it becomes, because they're working with vulnerable people who are already questioning their own self-worth, who are already broken in some sense by the system that we live in, where there are constant reminders everywhere that you look. There's a cross. The cross has really, like, it stresses me out, because actually it's a constant reminder of how broken we all are and how we need saving. And sometimes those people do need saving, but not by God, by humanity. And what the problem with it is that they're saying, well, we as human beings are helping you through Jesus, and without Jesus we wouldn't be able to do this, which is absolute nonsense, because I'm sitting here on a panel of some very wonderful people who really do go out to help vulnerable people who really need it, but go out to help them because they want to make the world a better place for everybody as human beings and sentient beings, or whatever, simply because they want to do that, not because they want Jesus to appear and save them and save their souls and say, it's really difficult. But yeah, I mean, a huge percentage of people who are vulnerable, and that's what people want.
Thank you for that. I think we've covered a lot into tonight's session, and thank you so much for participating, for listening. I want to thank my panel, everyone here who's taken the time to just tell their story and to share that, and to sort of put something out there that says that this is a big issue, a wider issue. And I want to sort of give you, our audience, the responsibility to kind of whisper in people's ear when you see something Islamic and something going on, that actually that's happening in a wider community as well, and bring that message out there. So thank you all so much for attending today, and give yourself a round of applause.